Did you guys watch the Super Bowl game the other night? I'm not a big football fan, but I do watch the Super Bowl when it rolls around. And wow, that was a tough game to watch. And it was a tough game because it was just this really clear vision of failure, at least in my eyes, right? So you have these two teams that worked hard all season and really worked to prove themselves and to get to this final game. But there's a winner and there's a loser. And, you make some wrong moves throughout the night, or you don't make the right moves. And, it's critical, right? It means that there's going to be a loser, and it may be you, right? If you didn't do the right thing. And I just really think about, I didn't have a favorite in the game. I guess if anybody, had to be my favorite, probably like Philadelphia. And that's only because I'm like Northeast and I don't know, maybe a locality thing. But, the reality is that, Mahomes was really disappointed in his performance and, talked about how like this is going to be a big motivation to get to the Super Bowl again and win it. And it just got me thinking about the failures I've had in my life and what that felt like. And we all have failure in our life. I mean, failure is important. I feel like it's a critical part of life because it's what pushes you to be better, what pushes you to take in the surroundings and learn how to maybe do something differently. And I mean, I embrace failure. I don't want to fail, but the reality is that when it happens, it's like a wake-up call, right? It's like, wake up, like what happened? What can you do differently next time? And so I was thinking about a point in my life when I failed, really what I felt like was a really big failure. And so I had gone to law school, right? You spend 3 years in law school and then you take the bar exam. And this bar exam is just this like behemoth thing. I mean, it's just thinking about it now just sort of makes me sick. But, you're gearing up to take the bar exam and you study. You go to special classes where they help you learn how to hone in on what you need to, study the hardest on so that you can be prepared for this horrible exam that is multiple choice and essays. Again, this was some years ago, so maybe there's a different component now I'm not aware of. I don't think so. I think it's still the same thing. That's what it's made of. So the multiple choice is really, that was the hardest for me. But you put this all together and it's 2 days for this exam. Really, really intense. So one day is just all the essays. You go in the morning, you have lunch, then you go in the afternoon, and then the next day, or vice versa, is all the multiple choice. Just like so hard, right? So you study, you prepare, you go take it, and I failed. And that sucked. I thought I had worked so hard to prepare myself for this exam that I never wanted to take again, and I failed it. And you wait. So once you take it too, you have to wait. I mean, it felt like forever, but it's at least like a month or two. I forget exactly until you find out if you passed or not. So you're like just waiting forever and you're just praying. I felt like I was praying and I failed. And that really sucked. It sucked because I think number one, I had to do it again, right? It's like, oh my God, I just went through this horrible experience, the studying for it for months beforehand, the taking it, now I need to do it again. But then the embarrassment, like I spent all this time preparing for this and I failed it. It's just a lot to take in there. And, I don't think it was ever a question of whether I'm going to take it again because I was like, I've come this far. I went to law school for 3 years, graduated law school. Like I'm going to become a licensed attorney. I am going to do this. So it wasn't a question of whether I was going to do it again or not. It was just like, well, okay, like, what do I do now? Like, I've got to take this again. It's offered in the summer and in the winter. So it's like July and February. I think it's been some years. And so it's like, all right, let's get ready for the next one. And, it was tough. really did a lot of research online. Like what did I miss that first time around that I need to do better this time? Like, of course, I had the experience of taking the exam once, right? So that helps. I sort of had a general feeling of like where I thought like, all right, I need to work harder in this area. I need to pay more attention to this. This was my weak spot. So that's part of it, but it's like, what can I do differently? Is there something I can do differently to attack this that I didn't do the first time? And I found, various study aids. At the time there was probably a guy who had been in the same situation as me, and he decided to write his own study books. I should find those. I have them somewhere. And somehow the way that his study guides went about studying really did help me. I dove into those immensely, taking practice exam after practice exam. For the essays, you have to know a lot of law. Like you have to know that law because you're going to be presented with this essay question. You need to respond to it and answer it, and you need to know the law. So I went into that, like just having written note card upon note card upon note card of all these laws that I needed to remember. I needed to memorize them like the back of my hand, and I needed to be able to present them cohesively in my essay response. And, there were just things like little nuggets here and there where I drilled into. I knew I had to. I had to drill into them harder than I ever imagined because that's what it was going to take to pass this exam. And I'll never forget going to take that exam and just feeling again like the weight of the world upon my shoulders, but also feeling like, what if I fail this exam a second time? Like, what is that going to feel like? What is, like, how am I going to manage that? Like, God, it was embarrassing enough to like fail it the first time, but to fail it the second time, how am I going to manage that embarrassment? And yeah, I don't really know. I think I just tried to push that aside and just go all in and just really, dive in and feel confident that I had, at that point, emotionally and physically, done what I could do to prepare myself for this second exam. I felt like I was in a good place. And I needed to just embrace where I was and like the universe. And the universe was going to support me with hopefully what I needed at that point in time. And I dove in and happy to say that I did pass it. I think I probably felt a little disbelief too once I did pass it. I think there's this thing about like failure where once you've failed at something, you can really believe strongly that you're going to conquer it. You're going to get over that mountain. But there's this little piece, this little nugget, of course, that is going to feel that apprehension of like, no, maybe this can happen again. I failed once, maybe I'll fail twice. So let's circle back to where we started here and just talking about like what that feels like, that failure, and then how it pushes you to just like go to the deepest, darkest depths of self. For a lot of people, not all people, right? Some people accept failure, but for those people that truly want to succeed, and it makes you really find out what you're made of. When you think you can't push yourself any harder, you can't dig any deeper. I mean, you find a way to, right? If you want to climb this mountain. It's like, I think of the people who have climbed Mount Everest, right? Like I always think of that. Like it's just this crazy thing, right? I'm going to climb Mount Everest. And you train and you get ready and you do it. And like the people who've like done it multiple times and like didn't work out, like the weather conditions were off. They physically couldn't make it to the next, I don't know, base camp or whatever. I don't really know the ins and outs of climbing Mount Everest. I just know it's hard. Then you think of the people like died. Like they just flat out died. They didn't make it because they fell and that was it. They were done. I mean, I think about like that and I think, You have these people that just keep coming back to do it again because they're so determined that they are going to climb this mountain and nothing's going to stop them. And it's just wild, right? And I feel like it shows us really this remarkable side of what we're actually capable of. We can doubt ourselves and wonder if we have what it takes. But if we want something bad enough, if you want that win bad enough, if you want to climb that mountain bad enough, you're gonna work and work and work, and you're usually gonna find a way to do it, right? Now, there are some things that maybe some people are working towards that are just so out there that it's going to be really hard for them to get that win or for them to get that accomplishment. Like, I recognize that. But like, for the average people, for me, talking about the bar exam, it's something that was doable. It was hard, and it definitely took a lot of perseverance on my part. A lot of digging deep, but like, it was doable, and I did it. And now I get to look back on that and say, you know what? I didn't give up. I didn't throw in the towel. And I could have, but I didn't. And I didn't fail in the end. I didn't fail. I found success. And so I challenge you in your life to think about what it is that you're trying to achieve. Like, where are the parts of your life where you feel like you've failed? And what maybe can you do to approach this thing differently this time? Do things differently. Maybe have a different mindset. Studying for a test seems like a very black and white thing, but it's not. Like, maybe there were other aspects there, like mental blockers, not learning the material, but maybe the believing whether I could do it or not, believing in myself, having the right support networks around me. Just take a step back. If there's something that you're trying to achieve and you're trying to find success in, and you've had a few failures, take a step back, take stock, look around. What have you been doing? What maybe hasn't been right? Maybe there's a different angle. Maybe the thing you're trying to achieve really isn't the thing. Maybe it's the thing next to it. Maybe it's the thing behind it that you can't really see. Like, that's the other thing, right? Trusting the universe. Yeah. I hope this video was helpful. It's like a lot of thinking, sharing. I get to share my story, but just sort of thinking about the human element of how I approach things, how I have approached things in my life, and where I am today.